Frank, good afternoon and welcome to News Talk. To hear your client
Thank you.
referred to as the condemned by the French president, what was your reaction to that?
Just as yours is, actually, the idea that a condemned person could receive any form of a fair trial from here on out is nonsense. The idea that he actually received any form of fair trial during the course of that proceeding is also nonsense. The reality is that he was found guilty based upon highly suspect evidence, which was gathered in relation to Mr Bailey by the Irish police, sent to France without any form of scrutiny by what would be the normal scrutiny channels in either an Irish criminal trial context or indeed a French criminal context, and they proceed to find him guilty. So the idea of his being guilty in France is, quite frankly, grossly unfair, and it doesn't have any meaning in this jurisdiction.
Because, of course, in this jurisdiction, he was never charged, never tried, and therefore, and for that reason, I'm assuming, that is the reason that the High Court did not extradite him to France last year.
Well, the reasons are quite technical, but in effect, you could throw that into the mix. The bottom line is, as you say, the Irish Director of Public Prosecution, as far back as December 96, January 97, January 98, and 2000, 2001, repeatedly decided, right up, by the way, to 2008, that there was not to be a prosecution against Mr Bailey. The decision was affirmed, in effect, finally in 2008. That's when the French got cracking and decided that they would start a process, although incidentally, they had begun a process. People don't realise this. They were shadowing us all along. They began a process as far back as 1997. They then come along to us in 2008 and ask us to release our police file, at which point in time, by the way, our Department of Justice, who was asked for it, knew or ought to have known that there were huge question marks over the police activity in Ireland. We had the option of refusing. We decided to give it to them. The French drive on, and in 2019 they have this trial based only on the evidence that was sent from Ireland. Nothing new was gathered by the French in relation to whatever so-called criminal investigation they pursued. And as night follows day, they go ahead and convict him. No surprise whatever. It was quite predictable. They had asked for his removal in 2010. The Supreme Court decided in 2012 that he was not to be removed. They came again before the trial in 2017 and asked for his removal for trial. The Irish High Court said, no, you can't have him. They came back again in 2020 after he was convicted on that evidence, and they said, can you now send him over so that he can serve 25 years in jail? The Irish High Court said, no, you can't have him. And the Irish state accepted the Irish High Court decision in 2017, 2020, did not appeal to the Supreme Court. The Irish court's involvement in the matter, therefore, has been upheld, if you like, by the Irish state.
Okay,
but
so
still the French are relentless.
We know yesterday it was on foot of a question from a journalist that Mr Macron answered the question, and he said that should the condemned agree to go to France, he could be offered a retrial. What was your reaction, and what was Ian Bailey's reaction to that?
Ian is just despondent. His life has been destroyed by this wrongful association with this dreadful crime from 1996 right through to now. I mean, the reality is that he's carried this wrongful association to the grave. This is just another, piece of the puzzle along the way. My reaction was that I was not at all actually surprised to hear that the French have a continuing, ongoing interest in this, miscarriage of justice over in their jurisdiction. We're now in this kind of macro situation, however, where France is now challenging Ireland, and Ireland has in many, many ways walked itself into this challenge by agreeing to provide mutual assistance back in 2008. All these events were somewhat predictable along the way. Now we're going to have to stand up for our, judicial independence in another forum if the French apparent threat is to be carried out. That's then up to Ireland to defend Ireland's judicial and, related integrity. I mean, this is an attack by France, and it has been all along, by the way. on the integrity of the Irish criminal justice
But
process.
it would appear to me, though, that the state is standing up to that pressure and that those threats, if you like. Can I ask you, Frank? In terms of Ian himself, most people have seen one or both of the documentaries that aired. And I mentioned at the very start of the programme, this is a story that just never, ever goes away. And it's been heightened lately, again, firstly by the statements by Emmanuel Macron yesterday, but it's been heightened also by a rumour, a suggestion, a tease that Sophie Toscan du Plantier's son may appear on the Late Late next week. And I know your client has said very categorically that if he's not invited to take part in that programme, he will complain to the Broadcasting Authority. Now, is he likely to be invited if her son should appear on the programme?
No, and I would think that under no circumstances would he ever envisage making a complaint. Is the Late Late Show, and best of luck to the Late Late Show, that issue is something of it's at a tangent, really, to what's, I suppose, important to Ian Bailey in relation to this case. I mean, I gather that the member of the family, for whom one must have enormous sympathy, is going to appear on the Late Late. That's the business of that individual, and indeed the business of the Late Late. That individual, I believe, may well be the son of the late Madame du Plantier, who is a victim, and one has to have sympathy, as I say. That individual, whom I've seen on the documentaries, is firmly of the view, and there you have it, that Mr Bailey is culpable. And I have absolutely no doubt that nothing that would be said by Ian Bailey or by me on his behalf would change his mind. I don't think it would be courteous to challenge the individual because he's a victim, and these things are very, very emotional and very difficult. I have to speak for Ian Bailey to say he is innocent. He's always maintained his innocence. The Irish state accepts his innocence. The Irish state does not accept the validity of the conviction in France because we have an ongoing open police investigation.
Okay, but should one of her family members appear on the on national television next week in the absence of Ian Bailey and reiterate statements that have been made on the documentaries about their belief in his guilt, will your client take action over that?
That's two questions. First of all, I believe that it's a matter for the Late Late to invite whomever they wish to invite onto their show. I mean, we live in an open democracy. There's a right of freedom of speech. If Mr Bailey feels, I suppose, that something wrongful is done to him as a result of that appearance, he may consider some response. I don't know. I mean, all this legal stuff to do with who is on the Late Late or not, I don't think it serves any particular purpose.
Okay, so we'll have to basically we'll have to wait and see what happens. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens. All right. Okay, Frank Buttimer, solicitor for Ian Bailey. Thank you very much indeed for your time, and thank you for joining us on News Talk.